care to, please stand for an opening prayer and pledge of allegiance. Mr. Cameron, if you would.
Let's pray. Heavenly Father, thank you for this day, and thank you for all that you do for us. And Lord, just pray for your guidance and your wisdom and direction tonight and all that we do and we say. And Lord, just thank you for the favor that we've seen upon this city and just the wisdom you've given us and the decisions we've made. And I just pray, God, that you continue to guide us and lead us and direct us. And all we do and say, in Jesus' name, amen.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you. Okay, at this time I'd like to open citizen participation. Anyone who would like to speak to anything not on the agenda, please step to the podium. State your name and address and you'll have 5 minutes. Anyone who'd like to speak to anything not on the agenda? Seeing none, citizen participation is closed. We have a motion and a second for approval of the consent agenda.
Motion. Second.
Have a motion and a second. All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Any abstentions? Motion carries 7-0. Boards, Commission, Committee schedule. Next council meeting is going to be August 7th, 2018. The one following that will be August 21st, 2018. Along with some of those announcements, I'd like to make sure everybody knows that August 7th from 6 to 8 p.m. there will be National Night Out at the Republic Aquatic Center. Free swimming and free food, local information booth and there will be fire and police demonstrations. And then also we have a scheduled joint workshop with the City Council and the Planning and Zoning Commission to discuss the importance of regional transportation along the U.S. Highway 60 corridor. The workshop is scheduled to begin at 6:30 p.m. Be held at Fire Station 1. Please let City Clerk Brenda Jackson know in advance if you plan to attend so that we can have an accurate head count for food and seating purposes. We'll have MoDOT, OTO, SMCOG, and the Greene County have been invited as well, so may benefit from their insight. Moving on, we have no old business. On to new business. Bill number 18-33 has been removed at this time by staff, so we will be striking that. Moving on, I need a motion and a second for the first reading of bill number 18-34.
Motion.
Second. Have a motion and a second. All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Any abstentions? Motion carries 7-0. Ms. Brenda.
An ordinance of the City Council of the City of Republic, Missouri approving amending the zoning code and official map by changing the classification of approximately 18.89 acres from agricultural AG to general commercial C2 owned by Jones Pulley Company LLC and located at the 6100 block of West State Highway M/West Republic Road.
Thank you, Brenda. Ms. Haynes, if you would please give us an overview.
Yes, thank you. The applicants, Jones Pulley Company LLC, have applied to rezone approximately 18.89 acres on the 6100 block of West Republic Road. The applicants that are prospective buyers of this property are here this evening. I'll go over just a brief analysis of the present site conditions as well as the proposal's relationship to the adopted plans of the city. The city's comprehensive plan generally encourages the expansion of commercial development along those commercial corridors. This is the proactive rezoning of land at appropriate locations. Appropriate locations are generally described through the plan in regard to the relationship of land at particular locations to infrastructure that's currently available or could currently be adapted. In the case of commercial zoning, this is generally in the intersection of arterial thoroughfares where commercial development can be clustered as being the most appropriate location for commercial zones of higher intensity land use, such as the C2 zoning district. The 2005 land use plan identifies land use goals and objectives relating to the commercial development as follows. Several goals and objectives and policies are in that particular plan. One of them being the proactive rezoning for commercial requests in proximity to land that is appropriate for commercial development. The land use plan also identifies these future development activity areas. The subject site is surrounded by Greene County large lot residential and agricultural properties to the north, east, and west of the subject property. The Republic High School location is to the south of the subject property. The land use permitted in the general commercial C2 zoning districts, which was included in your packet, are generally compatible with the surrounding commercial, residential, and agricultural zone properties and uses in proximity to the parcel. Municipal water and sewer service is not currently available on the subject parcel, but it is in proximity to the subject parcel. The roundabout that will be constructed on West Republic Road, that will necessitate the relocation of some of those utilities. The water service that will be available to the subject parcel, it's a 12-inch water main. There's also a gravity main across the street on the Republic High School property. The subject parcel is currently accessible for agricultural purposes only from an access point on West Republic Road. The actual development of the subject parcel will require review of a new entrance through the commercial development process and also through permitting with MoDOT. The subject parcel does not have any areas of floodplain or special flood hazard areas. There are 3 identified sinkholes. The Republic City Code does identify several code requirements, such as a 30-foot sinkhole rim setback for commercial development. The subject parcel, the vicinity of development in the particular area, it has been necessitated through commercial and multifamily in the general vicinity. Republic Road is identified as a primary arterial, and the particular parcel, we had a discussion with MoDOT, and the applicants will be giving up some right-of-way adjacent to that parcel for expansion of that particular road. Staff does consider the proposed zoning amendment or rezoning to be generally consistent with the goals and objectives of the comprehensive plan, consistent with the trend of development in the vicinity of the site, and generally compatible with surrounding land uses.
Okay,
I'll be happy to answer any questions you may have.
Questions, comments, concerns from council? Anything at this time? Okay, saying nothing, remember this is a first read. If you have any questions or comments, please give them Ms. Haynes before the next meeting and a second reading. Thank you. On to bill number 18-35, need a motion and a second for the first reading.
Motion. Second.
Have a motion and a second. All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Any abstentions? Motion carries 7-0, Ms. Brenda.
An ordinance of the City Council of the City of Republic, Missouri, authorizing the execution of an intergovernmental cooperative agreement with Greene County for road striping services.
Thank you, Mr. Nelson.
Good evening. If you'll recall, last year we had Greene County come in and do the striping on Hines after the overlay. This year we reached out to them again to ask if they would be willing to do some striping for us, and I asked for roughly a little over 3 times what we got last year, and they were willing. They gave us an estimate based on the hours anticipated in the materials to be $2,970.23, but again, that will be actual costs incurred, just like we would do for anybody. So we're looking at 0.9 miles of Main Street, 2 miles of Elm Street, 1 mile on Miller Road, and a half a mile on Hines Street. And that map is provided to kind of give you the general location of that, and that will be edge line and center line stripe.
Thank you. Any questions, comments, concerns from council?
Mr. Mayor,
Mr. Cameron.
so to put that in perspective, a year ago we paid $30,000 for half that amount. So for Andrew to work on that agreement to get it for 5 miles for $3,000, last year $30,000 versus $3,000, kudos for working that out, and that partnership to get that done. That's a huge savings for the community and 5 miles of striping more that we need done.
Absolutely. All right, well, if you have any questions, comments, concerns for Mr. Nelson between now and the next meeting, please give it to him. First reading only. I have a motion and a second for the first reading of bill number 18-36.
Motion. Second.
Have a motion and a second. All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Any abstentions? Motion carries 7-0. Ms. Brenda.
An ordinance of the City Council of the City of Republic, Missouri, amending the budget for fiscal year 2018.
Thank you, Ms. Parks.
Well, this is our budget amendment number 2 to the 2018 budget. This is required by RSMO Section 67 to have an approved budget in place and then to amend it if the expenditures of the total fund are to increase throughout the year. This is a process that you remember we started last year doing the mid-year budget amendment and then an end-of-year budget amendment. We already had one at the beginning of the year to capture some things that were added in after the close of the budget year. So this budget amendment is capturing the items from February to now that council has approved and other agenda items specifically for developer agreements. Those are now included in this budget, and also contracts that you have approved for purchases that we brought to you between that time. This budget also, we have started a process, we were already doing it, but we're going to do it more regularly, where we meet with the department heads quarterly to go through their budgets, to tell us of any unanticipated expenses that they foresee coming up, or just tweaking, sometimes level of service changes. As you realize, we are public sector, so we cannot always control the kind of projects that we work on. So we have looked at all these little line items, and so I have included in your exhibit 4 pages of line item adjustments. I have included those so you can see what has increased and decreased. We moved items from different lines. The overall picture of most importance, of course, is the ordinance. That is the summary of the total fund, which is required by state statute, and that is for the expenditures. State statute does not require us to amend the revenues, but I will, as part of this, of course, show you those increases. So I'm very happy to report that our revenues are significantly higher than we had anticipated last year in the budgeting process. They are at 6.45 for the first part of the year. So I have adjusted the budget accordingly for that. And instead of projecting on an increase for the rest of the year, I just put in the flat amounts we received last year, very conservative. And with that, we're at 48% net increase on the general fund. If you'll remember last year when we approved the original budget, our net income for the year for the general fund was only going to be $13,721. So of course, if our sales tax stays on track and we do have an increase throughout the rest of the year, that number will be significantly higher. But I decided to go conservatively just in our projections. The city has also received, I'm very happy to report, from Greene County, the law enforcement sales tax that was passed recently included a pot of money to be divvied up between the different municipalities in Greene County. And so we're getting $14,285 this year and for the next 20 years, actually. This year's project that it's been selected to be put upon is the financial software package that we're actually already installing, so that will help cover some of those costs. But last but not least, as part of this amendment, is $75,000 that we had sitting in a restricted account for the Oakwood and Hines project. As you know, we're currently there. We've started the project. And so I'm going to, at this time, move that restricted funds up to the unrestricted cash so we can now pay the bills on the Oakwood Hines project. So that is Section 7 of the ordinance. You'll see the $75,000 in the street fund is moved from Oak Court. Basically, if anyone has any questions between now and second read of this budget amendment, I'm willing to answer any questions on any of these line items. Thank you.
Do you have any questions right now from council, comments or concerns? Okay, seeing nothing in this first read, if you have any questions, please give Ms. Parks the meantime. Thank you, ma'am. That was a pretty short agenda for new items. So now we'll move on to resolutions. Resolution number 18-R-23. A resolution of the City Council of the City of Republic, Missouri, authorizing the purchase of 3 police vehicles. Do I have a motion and a second to open the resolution?
Motion. Second.
Have a motion and a second. Chief Sells.
Thank you, Mayor. Good evening, Council. We're requesting to purchase 3 new police vehicles for the police department. The vehicles would replace 3 older, higher mileage vehicles that we currently have in our fleet. 2 of the new vehicles would be 2019 Ford Interceptor SUVs, and the third would be a 2018 Ford Escape. The Escape would be assigned to our detective division, and the 2 Ford Interceptors would be assigned to our patrol division. The cost for the 2 Interceptors would be $29,177 each, and then the Ford Escape would come in at $18,784. We've also budgeted $30,000 to outfit all 3 vehicles with the necessary emergency equipment to get those road ready. If approved, the purchase would be made locally at the Ford dealership, as they do meet state bid prices. The purchase would be coming out of the capital improvements sales tax, and we had budgeted $114,000 for the project, but I'm anticipating coming in under budget at $107,138.
Thank you. Any questions, comments, or concerns? Chief Sells.
Is there any of that equipment on the vehicles that can be exchanged from the older vehicles to the newer vehicles?
Yes, on one of them, we're able to fully move that equipment over. On one of the SUVs, we're going to have to buy some more equipment because just the age of it that's outdated, but one is fully able to be transported over to the new car.
Thank you. And then, so the capital improvements tax, one of the things that we said we would do with that if it were changed from stormwater to this capital improvements is that we would buy police vehicles as part of that, correct?
Correct.
That was what?
Yes.
Fulfilling that promise. Any other questions, comments, or concerns? Okay, seeing none. All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Any abstentions? Motion carries 7-0. Thank you, sir. Moving on to the finance report. We have the finance report, right? Okay.
Well, I already announced the good news. For the first 6 months, we're at 6.45%, which is really significant. You'll see here how it comes in. Our general fund, the 1% sales tax, was $283,039, and that's a very significant number. And so we're doing really well in that department. I, of course, have attached as usual. You can see the breakdown where you can see the actual comparison to last year and the year before, so you can see for yourself how we're trending. On the restricted cash report, and well, basically the balances, your checkbook, ledger per se. The operating cash, the unrestricted for the general fund is $2,078,373. That is still a very healthy balance. As you know, as the year goes on and we spend down like the property real estate taxes that come in at the beginning of the year, that balance will go down a little bit, but that's what was budgeted. Overall, the unrestricted cash funds of the city and the different funds total $7,111. As I pointed out in the budget amendment, down at the very bottom, under the 40 fund, which is the street fund, there's, in the restricted cash, there's that Oak Court development for $75,000. That is the dollar amount that was included in that budget amendment that will be moved up to the unrestricted. So I just wanted to point that out where that fund, that money was sitting. On the budget to actual report, this point in the budget, being halfway through the year, we should be at 50%. You'll notice looking through that a lot of the departments are way below the 50% in expenditures. So most of the departments are well on track. The budget amendment does include a budget amendment for the fire department. They were tracking a little bit over on their expenditures, but we've captured that in the budget amendment. That was due to leaves of absences, including military leaves. So basically, on the summary sheet in the very front, you'll see that I've added a new column at the bottom so that you can see as of each month where we are on the overall fund, because we have the beginning fund balance at the beginning of the year. You see where the revenue and expenditure comes in. You'll see what our net income or loss, per se, is. And then, so it shows you, if you take the income, net or loss out of the, equals the balance. So, basically, we're still doing very well. One thing I would like to point out is the capital improvement fund, which is the Fund 81, sales tax, because we just discussed this budget, the purchase of the cars. We have actually received to date this year $313,000 in that fund. So that fund's doing really well because we started at the beginning of the year with, I believe, a $70,000 balance. So, and so far to date, we have completed as promised the ADA improvements to the senior center and the storm sirens. And so this third purchase of the cars will go towards what we promised. So I feel free to look through the financial reports. If you have any questions on them, I'm, as always, available to answer any questions anytime. One last thing I would like to just point out. Today was the very last day for any summit entries on the general ledger and accounts payable. So all going well. The checks in the next 2 weeks will start coming from the new system. And once again, my staff thanks you immensely. Going forward, we're going to probably, on the consent agenda, once a month, have an approved vendor list. Basically, the auditor had pointed out we needed to have approved vendor list. But as most of you might realize, the city is decentralized in purchasing, which means I do not vet everyone. Every department could go out and freely purchase. So what we're going to do is submit to you a list of vendors, because the whole purpose is to prevent fraud. So if you guys are looking at the list, and if, for example, you see a DP purchasing company, you might want to dig in and say, who's DP? You know, Google. That's the point, is to, if it's out there in the open. So every month as I add new vendors, those new vendors will come to you. It'll just be on the consent agenda, but it's for you guys to look at. If we are able to refine our purchasing process and get more staff, we might be able to do it in advance of purchases, but at this point, with only 3 staff members, this is the easiest way to satisfy that auditing and have the internal control. And then the same with the utility adjustments. We will also have those on the consent agenda because they get adjusted. You know, someone's water leak, if they have to wait 2 months for council approval, then I think we're doing a disservice. But that's something, of course, we could discuss later. But for now, we'll start that audit requirement on the consent agenda. Any questions?
Any discussion about the finance report? Seeing none, do I have a motion and a second to approve the finance report?
Motion.
Second.
I have a motion and a second. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Any abstentions? Motion carries 7-0. Thank you, ma'am. Moving on to reports from staff, Mr. Cameron.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Real quickly, Jennifer Mayfield, I want to commend you and the entire staff and everyone participated and have a blast. Oh, that was an outstanding event. Jared's not here tonight, and he's coaching a game, which is exactly where he needs to be, but you all did an outstanding job, and I know that Jared would always critique the fireworks and say, hey, I wish it was this or that, but I'm telling you, it's just great to see the sense of community and the folks that come out. This is the work that goes into that, and I want to thank the public safety staff, Mike Landis, everyone that volunteered on behalf of the city that participated in that event. But I will tell you something, it was the next day that really spoke even more to me. I know that night was incredible, but I was up and about going to the gym the next morning. I think it was 7:30, and there was the entire park staff around the entire circumference of that event, picking up trash and cleaning up on adjacent properties. And that's when you're like, wow, they're there late on that Friday night, and on their day off on that weekend, they're out there doing that work, and I think that just speaks volumes to the character and the work that you all do, and I commend you for it, and thank you all for it, and all the public safety staff. It was hot, and that was a hot evening, and you're out there in full uniform and standing on the streets. It was just, that's a lot of work, and it's a labor, but it's a huge benefit to our community and to our region, so thank you for a job well done. Work sessions with the council. I love this idea where we're talking about getting planning commission and the council together and talking about the growth and development of the Highway 60 corridor. That is one piece that in that discussion that we're gonna have to consistently, that is that one connector that we have to Springfield that we don't necessarily wanna slow down. And so the more development comes to us and we're looking at it, we gotta continue to have a communication about the best way to protect that corridor to Springfield, but also at the same time allow development, but how that needs to look. And so I think that with the new appointments that the mayor is making and the transitions that we're making, the council ratified was the adjustments or changes on the planning and zoning. I think that getting everyone together and discussing what is the direction and the vision as the community and with planning and zoning of how do we grow and collaborate together on what those decisions should be. So I commend staff for putting that together. I look forward to that discussion. A lot of feedback on the power outage last week. Again, Mike Landis, I think you made a huge improvement to the communication method for the city. I will tell you that we received a call. Obviously, the power went out the day before. I'm not really sure what that was. I will be meeting with Empire just to kind of get an understanding of the things that are going on, how we work on those things in the future and have a little more time to communicate them. But I appreciate that they gave me a call on the second day and said, hey, there's potential that it could go down. And so we worked internally with staff to, initially what that discussion was going to be that we were internally going to work with staff and see if we could shut down equipment throughout the city, like our larger users, the water plant, wastewater, or water equipment, wastewater plant stuff for a 2-hour window. But when the communication of a concern that the whole city could still go down, if we had that, we shut off a few things, we're like, well, hey, we told the administrator that it was going to go off. We put out the whole publication. So Mike, I appreciate you working with Empire to get that done. I'm still not 100% sure what the power outage was from. I've heard different stories of that. I've heard that there was a load shift and they needed it. Chose to shut down Republic. But I will be meeting with and just having some communication of how we go through those in the future to make sure the community knows the potential is there. It doesn't mean people are still going to be upset by it. We received a lot of calls believing we're the power provider. So we're going to be doing some education about basically who the power providers are and what those service providers can do. But a lot of interesting messages we received, so I appreciate the work by all the staff and the work that was done and the patience of the community. I know that's frustrating. My wife called 3 times while I was away, asked me what was wrong with the power. I'm like, well, we're not the power provider, but we'll continue to work on having those answers. Oakwood and Hines. So great report to give out that the original budget estimate for Oakwood and Hines back in, I want to say, whatever that was, it originally started 2015, was about 2.1 million. After the delay of all the acquisitions and just what it took to get to that point, they were anticipating 2.5 million, and that bid came in at 1.9. And considering the fact that Garrett, Brickner, and Andrew are going to be working on the project management of that, it's going to save us about what, 113? I thought it was 160. It's a little bit less than that, but still 130. Yeah, $130,000 on that project. That's a huge win for the community and the overall and the funding that's provided. And I commend staff again for the work that they're doing and the level of output that they're putting out that's saving money for this community. And Brian, saving $7,000, saving 130 sounds bigger, but I'm telling you, every bit of that matters. So when you say it won't go 114,000 to 107,000, I commend the work that's going on every day that you're doing, everyone's doing, to make this community better. So that is all I have right now. Thank you.
All right, thank you, sir. You know, one of the things we get, so I'm sorry, sometimes some of us get more colorful comments from power outages than other people.
Cool.
Some voicemails that are just kind of nasty, and I got a lot of messages from people and phone calls about that power outage. And so yeah, just to reiterate, we are not the power company. We don't control that. We wish we did. We at times, and then times like the other night, we're glad we don't. But we cannot control that, nor can we help it, and we're unfortunately at their mercy to try to find out what the actual cause was, which hopefully we'll be able to give some answers to the community. So all that to say, don't kill the messenger. Mike Landis was just trying to help us out, and Empire asked us to do that, and we were trying to get that message out so we didn't have a complete city outage again. I know people were upset, and it was very obvious from that Facebook post that they were upset. But we're just trying to get that message out. We were doing everything we could because there are people who are on oxygen, people who have medical needs, that we didn't want them to lose power when we could just maybe make some adjustments in the short term. So that's why that message was put out. The striping is great because that's another one of those things that we get comments on. Some things people see. If the water tower is dirty and the streets aren't striped, those are two things that I'm going to hear about regularly. So I certainly appreciate the striping being done, especially at that price. The partnership's great. To come in at that number is crazy that we're going to get that much done. Again, with Have a Blast, we did that just to celebrate Gary's birthday because he was born on the 4th of July. Actually, it was the 3rd. Well, Brenda lied to me, so the party was not for you. But either way, happy birthday to you, and Have a Blast was amazing. The last thing, other than I'll talk about the sales tax just briefly. It's great to see that 6.45, when a lot of other cities and communities are not seeing an increase and sometimes see a shortfall at this right now in this time. It's great to see that we are continuing on the upward trend. And I think as we see, with the announcement of Panda Express this last week, and we know Jimmy's Egg is not far behind that, and then there are some other things that will no doubt come beyond that our sales tax number is just going to continue to increase, put us in a better financial shape, and things are going to be good in the city of Republic. The last thing I want to talk about is, unfortunately, it is sickening to know that not only do our police officers now need to worry about their safety, but our firemen. There's a national trend that firemen are being outfitted with bullet-resistant vests because of the work that they do and the things that they encounter. And we would like to think that Republic is immune from that kind of thing, but then we hear about a call that happened just, what was it, last week, that makes us realize really quickly we're not immune from that here. When someone sets fire to their own house and then waits in the road with a rifle, we can assume that their intent is not good. So thankfully that turned out the way it did. We got to give kudos to the police department. That ended a lot better than it could have, but I cringe at thinking what could have happened if a fire truck showed up first and was unprepared to deal with that person. So just, something in the future we might need to think about, just to lay it out there to talk about at some other point in time. So I will now turn it over to Brandon Self, Councilmember Self.
I don't know. I don't have anything after you two. That was pretty broad strokes there. So I've got nothing else to add. Have a Blast was a great time, and also Andrew with the striping. That's awesome. So appreciate the work on that, and that's really all I've got. So
thanks, sir. Mr. Wilson.
I thought the fireworks was very outstanding. And concerning the fire department, I think we should probably be a little proactive and see about getting bullet-resistant vests for them. And that would be my thought on that. That's about it.
Thank you, sir. Mr. Jones.
A couple things. One regarding Have a Blast. I was not able to attend this year, unfortunately. Was at a high school class reunion that weekend, my 10-year. That's a total lie. But I was talking to a classmate, and they were surprised to find out that I'm from Republic, because they have it was either a niece or nephew that live close by, and they had talked about, they'd invited them down to this thing that Republic has called Have a Blast, and so they're planning next year to come down to it. And I thought that was kind of neat that St. Louis area people are starting to, think, at least talk about it. Maybe it's family connected, but nonetheless, it's leaving Southwest Missouri, so that's a good thing. And the only other thing too that I have is kudos to Chief Self and the job that you're doing, Chief Self, just to keep the police department on the right track, plowing forward. The improvement of equipment is essential towards providing the best that we can for our police officers, and we appreciate it very much.
Thank you, Mr. Jones. Mr. Beshears.
I think Have a Blast has been mentioned 5 times now. We'll mention it again. Sometimes 5 pats on the back feels better than just one, and it's to everyone involved. Gosh, thanks. And I know for a fact that the people that worked that day, Jennifer took 12, 14, 16 hours maybe that first one day, and I've got a relative that works there, after 4 or 5 hours sleep, they were back the next morning cleaning that park that you were talking about. And that's unbelievable that we had that much dedication, from the employees. But there are so many other groups too that work for the city that it's not quite so obvious at the time they put in and how much energy it takes, the commitment they have also. It's just not like I have a blast when you see it. So to those people, thanks. We're very privileged to have the groups that we have to work in the city. Thank you all.
Thank you, sir. Mr. Franklin?
I'm going to say the same thing about Have a Blast. It's just too many good things to not talk about, but Have a Blast was absolutely incredible. Everywhere you looked out, there was just mobs of people everywhere. That was a really good feeling being at Have a Blast. But when the train went by, I mean, that's just picture perfect. I really appreciate the video that's on Facebook. That's a really good video to show people that aren't from Republic what Republic's about. So I appreciate that very much. Thank you to the firefighters, policemen, everyone that kept everybody safe during that very hot day. I didn't hear of anything major that happened, so that's excellent. Thank you very much. Thank you for all the savings that we've had with everything too. That's very encouraging. But thank you very much.
All right. Mr. Rand is not present tonight, so Mr. Russell?
Well, I'm actually thankful for the blackout, believe it or not. I had the opportunity to meet a lot of my neighbors who they were very curious, and they somehow found their way to my front door. So, that was a good opportunity to meet new people. So, positive spin. And next time I buy a vehicle, you're coming with me to negotiate. However you did that, you're with me.
Just a good relationship.
Well done.
That's it. All right, thank you. Mr. Dyckman?
Well, the only thing I can say is I'm just glad that Republic has been lucky enough to end up with the staff that we've got. And whether we've stolen whatever we did from the other cities, I'm glad they don't have them that we do, because we couldn't ask for anything better.
Yeah, well, that is right. I think we did do a little stealing with a few people, but that's okay. All right, so at this point, I will ask to go into executive session. No further action other than announcing adjournment by the mayor shall take place after an executive session that is scheduled as the last matter on the agenda, unless otherwise stated on the agenda or as allowed per RSMO 610.02. Tonight we'll be discussing RSMO 610.021.2, real estate acquisition, closed session, closed vote, closed record, and RSMO 610.021.3, hiring, firing, promotion, or disciplining personnel, closed session, closed vote, closed record. Do I have a motion and a second to go into executive session?
Motion.
Second.
I have a motion and a second. Roll call vote.
Councilmember Self?
Aye.
Councilmember Wilson?
Aye.
Councilmember Jones?
Aye.
Councilmember Brashears?
Aye.
Councilmember Dyckman?
Aye.
Councilmember Russell?
Aye.
Councilmember Franklin?
Aye.
That motion carries 7-0. We will end regular session, have a 5-minute recess, and then take up the executive session. Thank you all for coming. That's the one takes the longest to get a motion in a second on too, by the way.